I've heard people say the forest hides more than it shows, that beneath the canopy, there are things older than memory itself, waiting just beyond the reach of our flashlights. I used to think that was just poetry, the kind of thing naturalists wrote in park brochures to stir a little awe in visitors. But after what I found during my patrols in Black Hollow, I know now that the forest doesn't just hide life. It buries secrets, and sometimes, if you stumble across the wrong place, those secrets don't want to stay buried. I'm not writing this as some campfire tale, or to spook the next rookie who laces up their boots. I'm writing it because what I found out there is still calling to me, in dreams, in stray thoughts when I walk a trail, even in the sound of my own footsteps at night. Maybe if I lay it out in full, the pull will weaken, or maybe I'm already marked. It started with a routine report, nothing strange at all. 2 hikers flagged down a ranger at the visitor's station, claiming they'd gotten lost off trail in the northwest quadrant of Black Hollow, an area dense with cedar and birch, where the undergrowth grows waist-high. They said they'd been wandering in circles when they stumbled across something bizarre, a set of stone steps descending straight into the ground, like the entrance to some old cellar or ruin. The hikers admitted they didn't go down, but they swore it felt wrong just standing near it, like the air was too cold, and their compasses spun uselessly in their hands. When they tried to find it again, it was gone. Naturally, the other ranger chalked it up to disorientation. Lost hikers see all kinds of things when fear sets in, but I remembered the way their voices shook, and something about the detail of their story made me uneasy. People imagine caves or ruins, sure, but a staircase descending into earth, that stuck in my head. A week later, I was patrolling near that same quadrant. Black Hollow isn't easy terrain. Dense brush, slopes that turn your ankles if you're not careful, streams hidden under moss. But it has an old strange quiet, the kind that makes you feel like you're walking through the lungs of something enormous. The hiker's story was still in my mind when I noticed a clearing I didn't recognize. I'd been through the area before and never seen it. But there it was, an oval gap in the trees as though something had pressed them outward. In the center, half swallowed by earth and root, were stone steps. They shouldn't have been there. The nearest old homestead ruins were miles away, and even those were just crumbled chimneys and foundation stones. But this was a staircase, maybe 6 feet wide, made of fitted blocks slick with moss and age. It led straight down into blackness. My breath misted in the air, though the day was mild, and the bird song I'd heard on the hike-in had died completely. I stepped closer, boots crunching leaves, and the silence deepened as if I'd crossed an invisible line. Every ranger is trained to document anomalies, landslides, new sinkholes, even suspicious human structures. So I pulled my radio, called in my location, and said I'd found what looked like old masonry. Static hissed back, no voice. I tried again. Same thing. I shrugged it off, telling myself the rock walls around the hollow were bouncing the signal. But the truth is, my hands were already shaking. I couldn't stop staring at the dark mouth below me. I should have marked the location and left, but curiosity has undone better people than me. I turned on my flashlight, crouched and shone it down the steps. They seemed to spiral, though I couldn't see how far. The beam disappeared into the dark like light into tar. Against every instinct, I placed 1 foot on the top step. Cold shot up through my boot. Colder than stone had any right to be. I pulled back. My chest tightened as though the air was denser here. I don't know why I did it. Maybe some part of me already knew I wouldn't get another chance, but I went down. The steps groaned faintly under my weight, but they held. I counted them in my head. 10, 20, 30. The forest above shrank to a circle of daylight. The walls were damp, roots poking through cracks in the fitted stone. My flashlight caught carvings on some of the blocks, spirals, lines like branches, symbols I didn't recognize. At 50 steps, the air shifted. It wasn't musty like a cellar, or sharp like cave air. It was stale, heavy like the breath of something long asleep. The staircase ended in a chamber. My light swept across stone walls forming a perfect circle. In the center lay a slab rectangular, as though it were an altar or sarcophagus. The carvings on it twisted in my beam, shapes that seemed to writhe just out of sight when I blinked. My pulse thudded in my ears. I forced myself closer. The slab wasn't solid. It had a seam around the edge, a lid, and as I leaned in, I heard it, a sound rising faintly from beneath. Not air, not stone shifting. Voices. I staggered back, my boots scraping the floor. The voices grew louder, a chorus of whispers overlapping, impossible to pick apart but urgent, insistent. They weren't in any language I knew, but the cadence was pleading, commanding both at once. My flashlight flickered, then died, plunging me into absolute dark. Panic surged. I fumbled, smacked it against my palm, and for a second I saw it. Just a second, but enough. The slab had shifted. Something beneath had pressed against it. I bolted. My boots slammed the steps, echoing like gunshots. The whispers chased me up, rising, swelling until they were a roar. My chest burned, vision swimming. When I burst into the clearing, the cold air nearly knocked me flat. I didn't stop running until I reached the trail, until I saw the familiar blaze markers carved into trees. Only then did I realize my radio was shrieking static so loud it hurt. When I tried to lead a team back the next morning, the clearing wasn't there. We retraced my steps by GPS, checked the ridges, even fanned out in a grid. Nothing. Just trees and brush and endless ridges. I felt sick. I knew what I'd seen, what I'd touched. But the forest had swallowed it again. That should have been the end. I should have buried it in my mind. But since then, I've dreamed of the staircase nearly every night. I descend step after step, deeper and deeper, but I never reach the chamber. The whispers follow me, seeping into my skull. Some nights I wake to find dirt under my nails, pine needles in my sheets. Once I woke with my boots by the door, mud fresh on the soles. I haven't told my supervisors the truth. They think stress is getting to me, that long shifts alone have frayed my nerves. Maybe they're right. But last week, a camper staggered into the station, pale and trembling, swearing he'd found steps in the woods that led nowhere. He said he heard voices. When I asked where, his directions led to the quadrant I know too well, so the staircase is still there, waiting, shifting like a wound that won't heal. I don't know if it's a remnant of something ancient, or if the forest itself builds it to lure us down. But I know this, it wanted me that day. It still does. And I'm not sure how much longer I can resist. If you ever hike Black Hollow and find yourself in a clearing that wasn't there before, with the air too still and the ground colder than it should be, leave. Don't take a step. Don't shine your light. And whatever you hear, no matter how much it sounds like someone calling for help, don't go down, because once you do, you may never come back up. I've walked the backcountry trails of more national parks than I can count, but I've never felt fear like I did in Bear Creek Preserve, late in the fall of my 8th year as a ranger. Fear isn't new to the job. Storms, wildfires, lost hikers, even the occasional aggressive bear will put a jolt through your system. But those are the kinds of dangers you can prepare for. You train, you carry equipment, you follow protocols. This was different. This was something no training manual warned me about, something no supervisor ever mentioned in briefing. It was something that shouldn't exist, but does, and I think about it every night when I close my eyes. It began with reports of missing deer. Hunters came into the station complaining that the herds had vanished from the ridges, where they'd always been thick. Locals said they found carcasses stripped clean in ways they couldn't explain. No bite marks, no broken bones, just hide and gristle scattered like something had sheared them apart with blades. We chalked it up to scavengers. Wolves had been moving back into the region, and cats can do strange things when they feed. But deep down it didn't sit right with me. Wolves leave tracks. Cats drag kills. Even coyotes are messy eaters. What folks were describing was something surgical, as if the forest itself had opened the animals like packages. I was assigned a solo patrol through the northern section of the preserve, near the gorge where Bear Creek cuts through limestone cliffs. It's rough terrain. No tourist trails, no campsites, just miles of old logging roads and animal paths. The kind of place you can walk all day without seeing another soul. I left at dawn, air sharp with frost, rifle slung across my back, more for bears than anything else. The forest was quiet, almost too quiet, as though it was holding its breath. Around mid-morning, I found the first kill. Hay buck, or what was left of it, half hidden under brush. The body cavity was torn wide open, ribs cracked, organs gone. But what struck me most was the precision. The head was untouched, the legs intact, but the torso had been hollowed like someone had scooped it clean. No drag marks, no tracks in the mud around it, just the body laid out as if dropped from above. My stomach turned, and though I took photos and logged the coordinates, I knew this wasn't any predator I'd studied. The second kill was worse. A doe, her fawn crumpled beside her. The fawn hadn't been eaten, only killed, its neck broken clean. The doe was shredded, hide flayed in strips, bones glistening under the weak sunlight. The smell hit me hard, copper and rot. But there was something else under it, a sour musk that made my throat tighten. I'd never smelled anything like it before. Sharp and chemical, like whetstone mixed with ozone after lightning. By afternoon, I was deep in the gorge, walls rising high on either side, the creek running low and thin. That's when I heard it, a cry that didn't belong to any animal I knew. Not a wolf, not a cat, not a bird. It was low at first, almost a groan. Then it rose into a pitch so sharp it made my teeth ache. The forest went dead silent afterward. No squirrels, no crows, not even the creek seemed to move. My heart thudded. Instinct told me to back out, to climb until I reached higher ground. But duty told me to press on, to identify the source, to make sure no hiker or poacher was in danger. So I moved forward, every step deliberate, rifle loose in my hands. The gorge narrowed ahead into a chute of boulders. I climbed over, boots scraping, and dropped into a hollow where the creek pooled. That's where I saw it. At first I thought it was a bear crouched over another kill. The bulk, the hunched posture, the dark mass of fur. But when it lifted its head, my brain rebelled. The face wasn't right. Too long, too narrow, with eyes that caught the light wrong, amber slitted but set forward like a predator's. Its mouth was wet, strings of gore hanging, but the teeth weren't bear teeth. They were jagged, uneven, like shards of broken bone jammed into black gums. Its limbs were too long, ending in claws that curved like sickles. And the way it moved, jerky, wrong, as though it didn't fully belong in its own skin, froze me where I stood. It saw me. The thing cocked its head, gore dripping from its chin. It didn't roar, didn't charge, didn't even flinch. It just watched. My training screamed to make myself big, loud, to fire a warning shot if needed. But some primal instinct deeper than training whispered one word: still. So I stood frozen, breath shallow, eyes locked on the creature, seconds stretched. Then, without sound, it rose to full height, taller than any bear I'd ever seen, its shoulders nearly brushing the low branches. It stepped backward into shadow, its claws trailing along the rock, leaving grooves like chalk marks. Then it melted into the trees, gone in an instant, as though the forest swallowed it. I stayed rooted until my legs ached. When I finally moved, it was to back away slow, rifle raised, heart hammering. Every branch crack made me flinch. I radioed in, voice shaking, but all I got was static. It wasn't until I was nearly 2 miles out that the signal came clear again. I didn't report exactly what I'd seen, just that I'd found multiple deer kills, possible apex predator in the area. If I'd told them the truth, they'd have laughed me out of the service. That night back at the station, I couldn't sleep. My ears rang with that cry. My nose still stung with that chemical musk. And in my mind, I replayed the way it looked at me, not like prey, not like threat, but like curiosity, as if it was trying to decide whether I was worth the effort. Over the next week, more carcasses turned up. Hunters started whispering about a shadow stalker, something bigger than any mountain lion, faster than any wolf. I volunteered for more patrols, driven by something between duty and obsession. I had to know if it was real, if it was still out there. Some nights, alone in my bunk, I swore I heard claws scraping outside on the siding. Once I woke to find deep gouges on the back door, 5 parallel lines etched into wood. The other rangers blamed a black bear, but I'd seen those claws. They weren't bear. The last time I went into the gorge, I didn't go alone. Another ranger, Stevens, insisted on joining me after I told him about the kills. We moved careful, rifles ready, nerves stretched taut. By dusk, we'd found nothing but silence. We were about to turn back when the smell hit. Ozone and musk stronger than ever. Stevens gagged. Then the cry split the air closer than it had ever been, echoing off stone until it seemed to come from everywhere. It came fast. 1 second the gorge was empty. The next it was there, a blur of muscle and claws ripping through brush. Stevens fired, the shot cracking off the walls, but the creature moved too quick. It hit him before he could chamber another round, the impact knocking them both into the creek. Blood sprayed. I raised my rifle screaming, but I couldn't get a clean shot. Stevens's screams cut short. The thing lifted its head, eyes glowing in the twilight, jaws slick with red. Then it turned and bounded up the cliff face like gravity meant nothing, vanishing into the pines. I scrambled to Stevens. His chest was shredded, his throat gone. He twitched once, then stilled. My hands shook so bad I nearly dropped the radio as I called for backup. When they finally got there, night had swallowed the gorge. They found Stevens, but nothing else. No prints, no fur. No grooves in the rock where I swore I'd seen claws tear. Just blood soaking into stone. The official report said mountain lion attack, and it was easier that way. Easier to explain to his family, easier to put in the books. But I know what I saw. No lion moves like that. No lion has eyes that shine like molten amber or claws that can climb sheer stone. I've since transferred out of Bear Creek, but even here, miles away, I dream of it. The way it studied me, as if weighing its options. In the dreams, I never escape the gorge. It always decides I'm worth it. And when I wake, sometimes I swear I smell that musk lingering in my room, sharp and electric. I tell myself it's imagination, stress, trauma. But I can't shake the thought that it remembers me too. That in those woods it marked me the way it marked the trees with its claws. And one day it will come finish what it started. So if you ever hike Bear Creek and you find a deer carcass gutted clean, or smell that sour chemical tang under the pines, leave. Don't follow the sound, no matter how curious you are. Don't mistake the silence for safety. And if you hear the cry low and rising until it makes your teeth ache, pray it's far away. Because if it's close, there's no running. Not from that. I don't tell this story often, and when I do, people usually laugh it off as one more ranger's campfire tale. I let them laugh. It's easier than explaining the weight in my chest, easier than admitting that I don't walk the woods at night anymore, not alone, not even with a rifle and floodlight. This happened years ago, but I still wake up some nights smelling soil and blood, my ears filled with a low rumble that wasn't thunder. I fought to forget it, but the forest has a way of remembering. The fall of 2009 was unremarkable in most ways. Dry, crisp air, leaves falling late. Wildlife patterns steady. I was stationed in a northern section of Pine Hollow Preserve, a sprawling reserve of hardwoods and pine ridges that had once been logging country. My assignment was routine: monitor trails, check for signs of poaching, keep tabs on a controlled burn zone, and log any unusual activity. Nothing I hadn't done 100 times before, but then came the sinkhole. A hunter reported it first, said he nearly broke his leg when the ground gave out beneath him near Redfern Ridge. By the time I reached it, the hole was 20 feet across, deeper than my flashlight could penetrate. The soil had collapsed inward, roots dangling like tendrils, stones littering the bottom. At first I thought it was just erosion, a cave roof caving in maybe, but the shape struck me as odd. Too circular, almost deliberate. Over the next few days, more sinkholes appeared, small ones at first, then larger, all clustered within a half-mile stretch of the ridge. The geologists we called in muttered about karst, water-dissolving limestone beneath the forest, but the weird thing was Pine Hollow had no limestone. The bedrock was granite. They shrugged, said anomalies happen, and moved on. But I kept thinking about those perfect circles, about the way the holes seemed to align like beads on a necklace. It was late October when I found the cavern. One of the largest sinkholes had widened after a heavy rain, opening a passage beneath the ridge. Curiosity got the better of me. I radioed my position, tied off a rope, and lowered myself in. My boots hit damp earth 20 feet down. I swung my flashlight around and felt my breath catch. This wasn't just a cave. The walls were etched, marked with grooves that curved in looping spirals. Not carvings exactly, not writing, but too precise to be natural. The air was heavy, stale, thick with the smell of wet stone and something older, something sweet, rotten, cloying. I should have climbed out right then, but I pushed deeper, the beam of my flashlight bouncing over rock and shadow. The passage opened into a chamber, maybe 40 feet across, and there, half buried in silt, was the shape. At first I thought it was a boulder, but as I stepped closer, the contours resolved. Ridges like ribs, long arcs like the curve of a spine. A skeleton, it was massive. Larger than any bear, larger than a moose. The skull alone was 6 feet long, elongated, tapering into a snout lined with jagged teeth. But what froze me was the condition. Bones don't stay intact like that underground, not for centuries. They collapse, they crumble, they fossilize. These were whole. Not fresh, not rotting, but preserved, as though time had been kept at bay. My light caught glints of something embedded in the bone, not mineral deposits, but metal. The ribs seemed fused with bands of dark, tarnished iron like restraints. I backed away, heart hammering. My radio crackled, and for a second I thought I heard words in the static, something guttural and low. I shut it off, not sure why, just knowing I didn't want to hear it again. I climbed out fast, telling myself I'd report it in the morning, that maybe the geologists had missed some prehistoric remnant, something explainable. But deep down I knew better. That night I dreamed of the chamber. I dreamed of standing in front of the skeleton, only it wasn't buried anymore. It rose, soil falling from its flanks, eyes glowing faintly in sockets that should have been empty. It looked at me, and the ground shook with a sound I felt in my bones. When I woke, the cabin was silent, but the glass of water on my nightstand rippled as though from distant tremors. Over the next week, things escalated. More sinkholes, more reports of strange noises, low rumbles underfoot like underground thunder. Hikers claimed they heard breathing in the earth, long, slow inhalations that made the leaves quiver. One couple swore they saw steam rising from a fissure, carrying a stench of sulfur and rot. The higher-ups brushed it off. Soil shifts, gas pockets, paranoia. But I started noticing wildlife fleeing the ridge. Deer migrated early. Birds avoided the canopy. Even the insects seemed gone, leaving the woods unsettlingly quiet. I went back once more. I told myself it was duty, But truthfully, it was obsession. I had to know if I'd imagined it. The chamber was as I'd left it, the skeleton half buried, the metal bands glinting in my light. But something had changed. The soil around the bones had sunk, as if the shape had shifted beneath. The skull tilted slightly, its jaw gaping wider, and there were scratches on the stone. Fresh gouges raked across the chamber floor. My knees went weak. I don't remember climbing out. I only remember running through the woods, not caring about branches lashing my face, not caring that I left my rope behind. When I reached the station, I was shaking so bad I could barely sign the logbook. I wrote nothing about what I'd seen. 2 days later, the collapse happened. Redfern Ridge buckled, half a hillside sinking into itself. The earth swallowed trees, boulders, entire sections of trail. From the overlook, you could see smoke or dust rising, but what struck me most was the sound, not the roar of falling earth. A deeper sound beneath it, like something exhaling after a long, long sleep. They closed the ridge indefinitely after that. Official reports said unstable terrain, dangerous subsidence, natural disaster. But I know what it was. I saw the ground breathe. Sometimes when the wind is right, you can hear it even from the visitor center. A low tremor, a rumble that doesn't match the sky. The animals still won't go near that side of the preserve. Hunters say the deer avoid it by miles, that coyotes whine and flee if you push them too close. Last winter, a local kid went missing up there, and though they found his pack and boots near a fresh fisher, the body never turned up. I'm not stationed at Pine Hollow anymore. I requested transfer within months, and they granted it without question. But even here, states away, the dreams follow. Always the chamber, always the skeleton, only it's never fully buried now. Each dream shows it a little freer. Soil gone from its chest, restraints rusted away. I wake drenched in sweat, convinced the tremors I feel aren't part of the dream. You don't have to believe me. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe the official story is easier to stomach. But if you ever walk Pine Hollow and you hear a low rumble beneath your feet, stop. Feel the ground. If it feels like something shifting far below, like breath moving through soil, turn back. Don't linger. Don't dig. Some things were buried for a reason, and some reasons are older, hungrier than we'll ever understand.